I had to get married to realize this, but when I did, my entire life changed. Quite literally, mine and my wife's entire lives changed. And it hasn't been the same ever since, and it was this. My suffering is my fault. Whatever situation where I attribute suffering to that situation, that is on me. 100% my fault. I know many will disagree. Many will see this video and be like, but there's plenty of people in the world who are victims to their circumstances and victims to oppression, oppressors. There are people murdering people. There are people enslaving people, people attacking people. There was this recent Austin guy who was murdered by, I think his name was Carmelo. But walk with me here. When I was right after I got married, and I was at my heaviest at 350 pounds, I had a choice to make. And that choice was either to accept as a husband in a new marriage to my wife. That choice was either to accept whatever level of suffering that I was experiencing because I was 350 pounds and because I had become, my phone's getting hot, because I had become the guy to actually get up to that weight and become the guy to get to 350 pounds. So I could either accept that I had become that guy and accept that I was accepting that suffering, or I could point outside of myself and look for others to blame. When I first got married, there was plenty of people to point fingers at and blame and be upset about. My mother-in-law, she was not at all in support of my wife and I's marriage. Her and her husband didn't come to the wedding. That hurt my wife. It hurt me. It was extremely painful. When we got back from our honeymoon, we would have loved to have shared all the pictures that we got while we were there with my mother-in-law and her husband. We wanted to share those memories. We went to the Selena Museum in Corpus Christi. We went to the Wax House. We saw the Alamo down in Texas. We ate all the Texas brisket. We did so many things. We went to the biggest Buc-ee's in Texas, the new Braunfels one that had all the 100+ gas pumps. We did all that stuff. And we wanted to share it with my in-laws. But at the time, she wasn't having it. What I could have done is I could have internalized that and taken it and embraced that rejection that I was experiencing from my in-laws and used that as fuel to excuse the suffering that I was choosing to live in. and to sit in. I could have done that. It was there. It was there for me to attach this suffering onto. But what if I had done that? If I had done that, then not only would I be giving my power to do anything about the suffering that I was going through away to my in-laws, not only was I removing and giving them that power, if I had done that, not only would I be removing my power to do anything about my situation, but on top of all of those things, they wouldn't even know. Because at the time, they weren't even willing to talk to us. But I could have, because that was a very real situation and a very real circumstance in my wife and I's life. I could have chosen to use that situation and that circumstance to attach the suffering that I was feeling, and therefore remove myself from the responsibility of doing anything about it. Why am I sharing this story? What's the point? The point is that any suffering that you go through in your life, especially as a husband, you're the leader of your marriage, leader of your household, you're a man, and so you have a higher calling in your family for your last name, for your lineage. Any level of suffering that you go through and that you experience, the longer you experience that suffering, the more of a choice that is that you're making to stay in that suffering. And so the question that you have to ask yourself, and the question that I needed to ask myself, because that hypothetical is one that I didn't go down. I didn't attach the responsibility to my in-laws. I didn't attach whatever suffering that I was going through because I was 350 pounds to my in-laws. I didn't do that. And so what I did is I looked at the suffering and I saw it for what it was, my own fault. And so once you do that, once you look at your own suffering and see it for exactly what you're supposed to see it as, which is something that you have complete control over. Because the point of the suffering that you're in is not so that you can stay in it. The point of the suffering is so that you can be, and this is what God does. He allows us to go through the suffering so that we can become more and more and more dependent on Him. Because the more dependent that we are on Him, the more power that we receive to have control and dominion over the suffering that we go through in our own lives. That's why you are in the suffering that you're in right now. God isn't the cause of your suffering, but He's allowed you to experience the suffering that you're in right now so that He can get the glory, and so that you can be made and molded and shaped into the man that can help and serve others who are going through the same thing that you're suffering with right now. If I rejected that, had I rejected that and pointed to my in-laws or pointed to the fact that I worked 86 hours a week at the time right after I got married, and when I was at 350 pounds and I was working 86 hours a week and I barely had any time, if I pointed at that and made that my excuse, and it's the time's fault. It's my time's fault. I don't have any time. That's why I suffer. If I did that, God doesn't get glory. God doesn't get glory. And I don't become the man that's able to and has the power and strength to and the experience to serve others. That doesn't happen. Not only because now I'm removing my responsibility to do anything about my suffering and my situation, but because now, in giving that power and control over to circumstances, I'm basically saying that whatever circumstance and situation, when you do that, you are saying that whatever circumstance, whatever situation you're pointing to, that you're saying this is the reason why I'm suffering. It's because of my in-laws. It's because of my job. It's because of society and government. It's because I don't have any time. When you do that, you are saying that has more control in your life than God does. You are saying that is more powerful than who God put you here to be. And that's not what you were created here to be. You were created here. You were put here and you were created to take ownership of your suffering that you go through. If you are of sound mind and you're an adult, my man, your suffering is on you. I don't care how real it feels. I don't care how uncomfortable it feels. It doesn't matter that it's been going on for so long. It doesn't matter that it's been years and years, maybe even decades, and you still can't figure it out. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it all comes down and back to you. This is why God has you in the season that he has you in. This is why he allows you to go through the suffering that you're in. Not so you can stay there and point fingers and look for something to blame. Bro, there are so many things in life for you to, there's billions of different things. There's billions of people. If there's billions of people for you to blame, on top of that, circumstances, objects, things, situations, experiences, I could go on and on. There's so many different things it's an endless amount of options to choose from, to be able to point to and blame for the source of your suffering. So you could go down that route. And if you've stayed stuck in suffering right now, you've gone down that route. The question for you, how's it been going? Has it helped you? Or has it caused you to stay stuck? I'm willing to bet that it's caused you to stay exactly where you're at. And until you take ownership, until you embrace that your suffering is your fault, until you do that, I am telling you, bro, you're going to stay stuck in the same patterns. And that's by design. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, God wants the best for you. Why would he allow you to overcome suffering by pointing fingers at an external source outside of yourself? Why would he do that? he would actually be doing you a very huge disservice if he set up life that way. Because then, if it worked that way, oh, it's the fact that I don't have any time. That's why I suffer. Oh, it's the fact that my in-laws don't like me. That's why I suffer. Oh, it's the fact that my upbringing. Oh, it's the fact that my job, they don't give me enough hours. Oh, it's the fact that my boss, he's overbearing. If God allowed you to be able to point fingers at all these outside sources, all these external sources, and receive deliverance, like over your suffering, like, oh, all I have to do is look and point fingers and then I won't suffer anymore. If he allowed that, then he would allow a reality where you no longer have control over your life. The fact that it is your fault, your suffering is your fault, is God's grace. The fact that your suffering is your fault is God's way of showing you that he loves you. Because the moment you realize and embrace and accept that your suffering is your fault, now you've stepped into control over your own situation. You are not God, but you were made in God's image. And what that means in your life, in practical living, everyday life, today, right now, what that means is that whatever suffering that you're going through, if you're 300 pounds, 350 pounds like I was, that is your fault. And that is on you. In the moment, if you accept that reality right now, today, it is in that moment that you'll actually have the power and the strength and the faith to overcome that suffering